Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be playing through the game with one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Pokémon in the game. If you didn't know, Rhydon is supposedly the first Pokémon ever designed. Anyway, for the rules, I can only use my starter in combat. I cannot use items from my bag in battle. I can't increase my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Rhydon is an interesting Pokémon. His stats are not too bad, with a lot of attack and defense. Unfortunately, that's pretty much where the good news ends, because all of the special stats and the speed are quite bad. And given the fact that I am 4 times weak to water, that might be a problem in the later parts of the game. At least for the first few fights, our rock typing is going to be of great help, since it will allow us to resist all of the normal attacks. As far as starting moveset goes, Rhydon is doing pretty well. Both Horn Attack and Stomp are decent moves that deal good damage and have 100 accuracy. Unfortunately, all of my attacks are normal type, and so Roxanne might be a problem. All of her Pokémons are rocks, and so they resist my attacks. I can mitigate the problem a little bit with Tail Whip. By lowering their defense, my damage goes from bad to almost decent. Unfortunately, she can counterplay me by using Defense Curl, which raises her defenses, and so Tail Whip is not that useful anymore. And what often ends up happening is a dance between Tail Whip and Hardening that ultimately results in no more than 1 defense drop. At the very least, I can be happy knowing that she is in the same situation. She only has rock or ground attacks, both of whom are resisted by one of our typings. And so this fight ended up being a wet noodle slapping contest. Rhydon does learn a decent rock attack through level up, but that is at a high level and I did not want to spend well over 1 hour grinding for it. Especially because even though this fight was very long, it was not that dangerous. After a lot of hardens from her nosepass, my stomps were not doing much damage, and so I switched to Fury Attack. At this point, each stomp was doing 1 or 2 damage, so at least with this move I have multiple hits, each of whom deals 1 damage, but that's not that bad all things considered. Once we have defeated Roxanne, there are a few other things to do in this town, but they are not very important. Before we can leave it though, we can take on the optional fight against our rival. Here May improved a bit, as now she has a Wingull and a Trico, both of whom can have moves that deal a lot of damage to me. Fortunately, my high stats are still enough to carry me, and so I can move on. I skipped Brawly since I only have physical moves and he is super effective on me. Rhydon is pretty good on the physical side, and so I am likely to beat him even now, but I preferred to play it safe. Instead, I went to Slateport, where we have to defeat the 2 usual grunts, but they are no big deal thanks to our strong attacks, and once I am done with that, I had to grind quite a bit more, because the next encounter against me is going to be a lot more dangerous. Wingull alone almost takes away half of my HP, but Grovyle is just barely not able to defeat me, and so I can one-shot all of her members, surviving on a bit of HP. Once I'm done with that and the usual mobile grind, I can attempt to challenge Wattson. For this fight, I was not sure whether he was still able to land a Thunder Wave on me. Yes, I have the ground typing and the lightning rod ability, but you never know in these generations, and so I still equipped a cherry berry. So Silk Scarf might have been a better held item, but in the end we came out on top anyway. Now that Wattson is defeated, we can use the Rock Smash HM out of combat, and thanks to that we can explore more of the region. Eventually we stumble onto the other two teams, and here we are informed about what Maxi wants to do. To try to stop him, we reach him at the top of the volcano and start a fight with him. This one is a bit annoying and somewhat dangerous. My Tiena lowers my attack, which is very bad, but fortunately I can land a few good rock blasts that allow me to defeat his Pokémons before they can hit me too often. And with the leader of Team Magma defeated, we can get to the next gym, and Flannery should be easy, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I do have Dig, which is super effective on her Pokémons, but I was unsure whether to use it or not against Camerupt, because I was worrying it would deal a lot of damage to me with Magnitude. So instead I defeated that guy with Rock Blast and used Dig on her ace that with a crit ended up being a one-shot. After having a very easy time with Flannery, I had to backtrack a bit and take care of Brawly. At this point, his Pokémons are very underleveled compared to my Rhydon, and so I was able to one-shot all of them with a simple secret power. Now that we have this badge too, we can backtrack a little bit more until we reach our dad's gym. And while Norman has the type disadvantage against us, I was still a bit worried about this fight, mostly because of the slacking. I can cheese him a bit with Dig, but between potions, berries and even yawns, things might spiral out of control. All because a counter would deal good damage to me. While I was sleeping, I tried to understand which move to use by seeing whether or not slacking was loafing in the previous turn, and with a bit of good analysis, I was able to get back on track and defeat the huge Pokémon. From there, the rest of his team was much less problematic, even though they were able to leave a hit and deal some damage back to me. That was a bit too little to really pose a threat. And so, after enduring quite a few attacks, I was able to finally finish off the last of his Pokémons, and thanks to that, we can finally use the HM for Surf. Even though Rhydon can learn it, along with a whole bunch of other special attacking moves, I preferred to not teach it. I do not think it would be that useful. Sure, it would get around the Intimidates and hit the rock types for decent damage, but considering how low my special attack is, I do not think it was worth it. The rival fight before Fortree could be problematic if the Grovyle manages to outspeed me, but fortunately I can still move first and finish it off with a single attack. Our next major battle is going to be against Winona. She specializes in flying types, and so for once I have the type advantage. This is good, but I do not think that this fight is completely free. Quite a few of her Pokémons have super effective moves on me, like for example the Tropius or the Altaria, and as you saw, Skarmory is unable to be defeated in a single attack, and so he can lower my accuracy. To make things worse, I also got paralyzed, but fortunately I managed to snap through all of that RNG at least once to finish off her ace Pokémon. Next we have the last optional fight against May, and even though I thought this would be free, she turned out to be extremely hard. At this point, Grovyle has enough speed to move before me, and Leaf Blade deals a lot of damage. With a crit, it's more than enough to one-shot me. Eventually I can survive one attack and finally land a Rock Blast to defeat her starter, and from there things go much better for me. Up until now, Rock Blast was decently accurate, but from here to the end of the game it will miss a lot, which will result in a lot of problems for me. Anyway, after a few more turns, I can finish off all of her Pokémons, and so we can resume the story. First thing first, we go to the Pokémon Cemetery to obtain the Magma Emblem, and with that key item, we can enter the cave where Rhydon is. Here, after defeating a whole bunch of grunts, we can make it to the depths and come face to face with the leader of Team Magma, who just awoken the legendary with the wrong orb. Much like our previous fight with Maxi, this is a bit annoying because of Intimidate, and even more dangerous because Camerupt now knows Earthquake. Fortunately, I could protect myself from at least one attack with Substitute, but in the end it was not needed. Next, we have to infiltrate the Team Aqua hideout to try to stop their leader. Here, unfortunately, we are only able to find one of their admirals, which is once again a bit of an annoying fight because of Intimidate. My Tiena lands a Swagger on me halfway through the fight, which at least helps me deal more damage and makes the fight go by a bit faster. After that I did a bit of training and even got the TM for return, because Tate and Liza proved to be quite a dangerous foe. All of their Pokémons are immune to ground, and so I cannot use a Dig. And also, most of them have a super effective move, or at the very least, hit me on the special defense, which is by far my weakest side. I was tempted to use a few rare candies, but I at least tried them a few more times. Eventually I got a bit of good luck on my side. Rock Blast did not miss and got a good amount of hits. In the end it was quite close, even one more turn and I would have been defeated by the Claydol. No matter, a victory is a victory, and so I'll move on to the next fight on this island. For this one, we have to help the ex-champion Steven Stone defeat the leadership of Team Magma. As usual, when dealing with the two teams in this game, you always have to consider the intimidate problem, but in this fight in particular, things are a bit less dangerous. There is another Pokémon for them to target, and the damage output from their Pokémons is honestly not that high. Especially if you have something that resists both normal and flying attacks, like Rhydon does. It took quite a few turns, but eventually I can defeat all of one guy's Pokémons, and so I turn it into a 2v1 fight. From here things speed up a little bit, because both me and Metang can focus on the same Pokémon. After blasting them a bit, I managed to defeat all of their Pokémons, and Rhydon even learned Earthquake, which is going to be very useful, but I would have gotten that move in just a little bit from a TM. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the fight against Archie in the seafloor cave, but you did not miss much. Since that guy does not have Earthquake, is even less dangerous than Maxi. And once we have saved the planet, we can go die quite a few times against the last gym leader. Juan is a bit of a problem for us. All of his Pokémons have water attacks which deal a lot of damage, and both Luvtisc and Kingdra are faster than me. To solve that problem, I equipped the Quick Claw on Rhydon, and after failing a couple of times, it activated on the first turn against Luvtisc, and that gave me enough HP to survive a hit from Kingdra, and that was just what I needed to sweep through his team. Now that we finally have all of the badges, we can enter the Victory Road, where we are soon stopped by the secondary rival of this game, Wally. Fortunately for me, even though his team is quite heterogeneous, it is not really a threat for us. After defeating the Altaria with Rock Blast, I can freely spam Earthquake, since nothing else on his team even resists it, and with all of my attack, that stab move easily one-shot everything he has. For the league, I was very worried about getting stuck halfway through, and so I took the time to grind quite a bit before even starting it. I stopped at level 82, which might be a bit too high, but I preferred to not get screwed over later. The bad thing about this is that now most of the Pokémons from the first Elite Four guys are going to be a one-shot, and so the fight against them is going to be somewhat boring. The damage on Sidney was not that high, to be honest, mostly because of Intimidate, and even Phoebe can maybe, very maybe, take a hit with her Dusclops. Ultimately that does not happen, and even if it did, I was safely hiding behind the substitute doll. Once her two walls were defeated, the rest of the team was easy pickings with Earthquake, and so we can make our way to Glacia. Here is where things could get bad. I can attack her with Earthquake, which deals good damage, but I'm not sure if it is enough to one-shot all of her Pokémons, or otherwise I can use Rock Blast. That move is super effective, and so it deals more damage, but it is highly inaccurate. By some miracle though, in this fight, even though I missed, I only got hit by an explosion, which honestly barely tickled me. And even Walrein, which is very tanky, gets defeated by only 2 Rock Blasts. Up until now, things were not that bad, but Drake is where it takes a turn for the harder. Most of his Pokémon have some way of dealing good damage to Rhydon, but fortunately I am faster than Kindra, even though this surf would have been taken by the substitute. At least that allows me to keep it alive for quite a while, and even block the Intimidate from Salamence. Thanks to that, as soon as I land a Rock Blast, the Massive Dragon is defeated too, and so we can make our way to the champion of the region. Wallace is extremely dangerous. All of his Pokémon have a water attack, which, considering my weaknesses, is surely a one-shot. I was hoping to find a turn where to set up a substitute so that I would be able to take a hit, but things were very hectic and I was not sure what to do. Halfway through the fight, Rock Blast lets me down by hitting Ludicolo only 2 times, and so he can retaliate with a massive surf. Fortunately, I can just barely survive it, and that is just barely enough to get me enough turns to defeat the rest of his Pokémons. A risky fight, but we got through in the end. Rhydon started very well, but the second half of the game was very harsh on her. Loads of water and grass types that were able to deal massive damage and often even one-shot it. But things are not over because I decided to give Steven a few attempts. At the start, I tried to defeat him at the level that I came out of the league, but that did not work out at all. And so I used the rare candies to increase my level, but I also made a huge mistake because I overwrote Return with a Brick Break. So in the end, I was able to get through most of Steven's team, but I did not have anything to deal with the Claydol, and that Pokémon was able to outlast me. So to try to solve that problem, I had to use the Facade TM. It is weaker, but at least it hits Claydol for neutral damage. In the successful attempt, I was quite lucky. I was able to defeat Skarmory with a substitute up, which is not that easy to do, considering that even though it has low attack, 2 Steel Wings are enough to break the substitute. I also got a great roll against Cradily. He does not always get defeated by Earthquake. And since I reached Claydol with a substitute and most of my HP, things were looking quite good for me. Unfortunately, he uses Reflect at the start of the fight, and then he has a full restore to heal up quite a lot. Since I do not have any way of healing myself, I do not enjoy this attrition battle, but fortunately one last Facade can deal just enough damage to defeat it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell and all of that. If you have any comments with ideas or feedback, leave them down below, and I'll see you next week. Bye!